So when we get a new client starting with us at Chromatic, one of the first things that we sit on and work through with them is what success looks like and what's the destination of the work that we're going to do with them. Why is that often a good place to start or a good place to have one of the first things you would talk to a new client about?
I think whenever you're working with a business, whether you're agency side or in-house, there's no point in just having a message. If you don't know who's going to be hearing that message and who needs to understand that message, then you're shouting into a deep, dark room. Uh, if you know who your audience is and you know the outlets they're reading, you know the media they're reading, you know the YouTube channels they're consuming, then that gives you half of the picture. You know where they're going to be and you know what you want them to hear. But it's important to understand that all of that functions as part of a larger funnel. This is the idea of the marketing communications and sales funnel and pipeline. You need them to understand there is an action that they have to take at the end of consuming your message, at the end of hearing what you have to say. So part of our client onboarding process is to understand not just the business's message and what they want to achieve, but who that target audience is and where they live. Not literally, I don't want to know their postcode or their blood type, but I do want to know what they're reading, where they're reading it, and the problems that they're trying to solve. Paint that picture, you know what success looks like, and then you can measure that success and you can iterate on that success.
And let me you talk about iteration. How like in today's kind of fast moving world that we live in, and both from the kind of B2B side and the B2C side, plans often change, things go wrong, product launches get pushed back, audiences change, presidents putting taxes that weren't there before. There's loads of things that happen that maybe it would change the fundamentals of what your business plan or your product offer might be. How do you kind of adapt with
Yeah.
those?
I think the fundamentals are always going to be the same. Whatever your product is, whatever your service is, you know what it's there to do. You know what it's there to solve. If you don't, then you've probably not done enough market research to understand actually what you're trying to offer to people, and that's a whole different problem to address entirely. But when it comes to the need to pivot and the need to adapt to changes, like the taxes that Trump is putting on, like the tariffs that are happening, then that becomes a matter of tweaking. It's altering to adapt to an external influence,
Yeah.
an external issue, in much the same way that crisis management does. It's usually something that is unpredictable or out of your control. The crucial element is to understand the fundamentals of what you're offering and what you're trying to say, that message, that target audience, those outlets, the places where they live. And it's also a sense of keeping an eye on the wider world and the wider industry so that when those moments do happen, and they will, they always happen, then you can pivot. You can push back that product launch and it's not a problem. You haven't seeded a message saying tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Right.
you will get these 90 things and then you can't deliver. But on the times where that is the case, and we've seen them every now and again where something totally wild and out of your control does push back a message that you said tomorrow 9 a.m. you're going to have a new product. It's really important to be honest. It's important to be upfront with people and say there has been this issue. It's not part of the plan. It's not part of something that we were planning for or that we could control. Or we've detected something that maybe we should have picked up earlier but didn't. But it's important to be honest and it's important to get ahead of that message as fast as possible. So the idea of having a solid foundation, understanding your message, and then being able to adapt is part of the overall strategy that people need to put in place right at the front of any activity.
So would you say when you talk about the understanding the strategy of the bit for the business and the key messaging, would you say that ties in with your business talking about having a North Star of what they're aiming for? So when you're talking about what success looks like,
Yeah.
would that be aligned to having that guiding principle for what you're trying to deliver, which you may be buffeted by the sea as you go along, but you still got your destination in the distance that you're aiming for.
Yeah, I think there's an element of marketing and PR work that dovetails very, very neatly with an overall business strategy. And an overall business strategy should have that North Star. It shouldn't just be a communications thing, it should be a brand thing. It should be a guiding principle of the business that everybody can look to and lean on. If you've got that, then you always know where you're going. Whether it's stormy seas, whether it's smooth sailing, there is always something that you can point at and say, we are heading over that way. We might have to take a couple of detours here and there, but we know where we're going and we know what people we're bringing along for the journey.
And how much, how important is it to have those metrics of success communicated internally, as to get your teams to buy into what you're doing and your employees to kind of understand what the momentum of the business is and what the direction of the business is? How key is that, with part of your overall PR and marketing?
Employees are your first target audience. You are never going to succeed in business or in communications or in any team endeavor unless everybody is on the same page. If you're not, and if people don't know what you're trying to achieve internally, how can they understand it externally? If your sales team don't know the core functionality of a new product, if your technical team don't understand a sales team's requirements, if your marketing and PR teams don't understand what the sales and technical teams are trying to achieve or trying to deliver or trying to communicate, there is no way you are going to have a clear and coherent message externally. Your internal team, your staff, your employees, your fundamental building blocks of your business are always your first audience. They should always be the first to know. They should never find out updates or news from the news. That's where marketing and an internal communications function really need to work hand in hand.
Cool. And we've talked a bit before about this idea of being a busy fool, and that there's often for businesses who are looking at marketing PR, there's so many things to choose from, or so many potential channels to get engaged in. When you're defining what success is for a campaign or for um you know b- the plan their business may have, how important is it to, I guess, say no to things and look at the maybe elements of campaigns are being considered that won't necessarily move the needle in terms of the success that you're aiming for?
A wise person says something because they have something to say, a fool because they have to say something. It's that sort of adage of if you feel the need to communicate, and it doesn't matter what you're communicating, you're not going to actually say anything. You're not going to make a difference. No one's going to hear you. You're just adding to this cacophony that is going on and on and on all the time. It's the same principle that I always give some advice to companies when they start talking about doing a monthly newsletter. That's absolutely fine if you've got a regular cadence of thought leading, new content, and something valuable to add to the conversation. If the reason that you're doing a monthly newsletter is because you feel like you have to say something to the people on your list, you've missed the point. You need something that's going to move that needle. You need something that people are going to latch onto and recognize your business or your team as a leader. If you can do that, then you've always got something new. You've always got something to push out. If, on the other hand, you find yourself in a little bit of a lull at a messaging or a PR pause moment, it doesn't mean you have to scramble. In a strange kind of way, that's actually a godsend because you have a beat to plan for the next thing. In media and entertainment, this happens all the time, particularly after there have been strikes or industry downturns, as there have been recently. It gives people this sense of, oh my God, we've got to get our messaging out. We've got to say something to people. People need to see that we're busy. When actually, the whole industry has this ebb and flow to it. And you can have that pause moment and you can start shining a light on your team. You can start preparing for the next product. You can start reviewing your brand. You can start updating your website. There's always building blocks that you can put in place in those pause moments. So it's about picking the right opportunities. It's about being okay with having a quiet moment. And all of that comes back to that core principle of knowing what you're trying to say and who you're trying to say it to.